Hello design. So I wanted to talk about, we have gone over how to illustrate things in Adobe Illustrator graphics, but we haven't really talked about text. So I wanted to get into some of the things that you can do with text, okay? So first, on the left, we have the type tool. And if I selected it, I wanted to show you that you have two options. So the first one is the one that you're going to pick. Okay, they do have an option if you wanted to make a text box to make stack text, but you'd actually not use that. The only reason that's here is because this program is used internationally. So you can imagine other countries are using it, and you can think about Asia and how they are going to write from top to bottom. I was actually told one of the first graphic design projects I made, I actually did this, and my professor came over and was like, no! And I'm like, what? And he's like, don't do that. He's like, this is a typography. No, this is the worst thing you could ever do. And he said, never to stack text like this. It was just like such a sweet little old man. And he was like, ah! And I'm like, okay. So I don't do this. We don't read like this. It's really hard to read. So don't do I think you want to because it's there, but it's not for us. It's not made for Americans. Okay. So what you do is you're going to pick the type tool, the T, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to make your text box. Now, when you start making it, it's going to fill it in with text, and this is just place text. Sometimes you're designing and it doesn't matter what the text is while you're designing it. You just need fill, and the fill is called lorem ipsum, and this looks like Latin, but it's not actually real. It was created for graphic designers to use fill text so that you actually don't read the text, you're paying attention to the actual design. It will automatically fill with this, which is kind of like, you're like, that's not what I want. But just make the text box as big as you're going to need it. Think about how big or how much space it's going to take on the page. And then I'm going to hit the keyboard here, and then I can hit delete, okay? And then I'm going to type in what I want. So I'm going to pretend that I am making a logo for myself. And there's my name. Now, notice that my name isn't as big as I want it. I wanted to fill this text box. So now what do I do? Okay, so now we're going to go to the properties. And as we scroll down, now we can see right here where it says text. The first item here is the name of the font. And then you have the styles that are available. You might have different weights and styles. So bold, black, light. There's going to be different options depending on what font that you have. Okay, and then it has this thing, and I do want to show you this because the other thing that you do not want to do with text is distort text. So somebody actually created this font, and they actually mathematically figured out how much space needs to be between each letter and how tall it needs to be and all this stuff. And when you do something, the horizontal weight, it's not selected. Sorry, let me select it. If you change the horizontal, you're stretching the font. Okay, so make sure that you might need to go back in there and type in 100. And if you stretch it vertically, all right, you're playing around with the mathematical calculation of that. So this is something else that I do not want you to do. Please, I think that I don't know why it's even in here. I'm not really sure. But that was something else I was told as a graphic designer not to ever do, was to stretch or distort the type, but that's there. I just want to show you that. Next, we have the size. So it's measured by points, and we'll get into math later. Okay. Next to that is the amount of space between lines of text, which is called leading. Okay. And then we have we have tracking and kerning here, which we'll get into later. We're not doing paragraphs of text. Okay. And then you have other options like making glyphs and underlining and stuff like that. And you can also change the text container here. You can also change how, let me go back so that you can see, just so you can see that we can left align, center align, right align, or fill. And again, we're not working with paragraphs, so that doesn't really matter. Here where it says fill, this is where you can change the color of the font. And then I'm not going to show you how to add a stroke. This is type thing, number 3 thing to avoid. Never add a stroke to text. So that was like it's like, okay, so don't stack type, do not distort type, and do not put an outline on type, because again, it plays with the legibility of the type. So those are like 3 main things that I learned. And then blend mode is how it blends with other things on the page. Opacity is the lightness or darkness, and again, it's not selected anymore, so it's not changing it. So now we can, change the opacity, and then we're not going to worry about stroke because you shouldn't be working with it. Okay, so let's go back up, and I'm just going to change it. So you can make it bigger this way, or you can actually type in if you know the point size that you want it to be. Okay, and so there it is. That's this font. And so you remember how my professor said not to stack stack type? This is what he did say that you can do. Oops. So we can't, it's not letting me rotate. Okay, there we go. And then, is it rotating the whole thing? Okay, so this is interesting to know. Yeah, like in the app, there's actually a rotate tool, and if I rotate it with the tool, then that doesn't happen. So say you do want to rotate text and you don't want to rotate the text box. This is bringing up a really good point. Okay, so on the right, you're going to see this T palette. Okay, and it's going to ask you if you want to type on a path, edit the type on the path, and that top one is T, and that's do you want to, right now it's text, do you want to change it into shapes? And I'm going to make another text box to illustrate this. Okay, and I'm going to hit this, and then, so say you wanted to make you want to actually like play around with the shape of this, not just have it bound by this text box. If I go over here to T and then pick this is going to outline the text. And now notice that this is editable. Okay, I'm going to ungroup it. And now these are individual shapes. If I pick the direct selection tool, I can now manipulate this font. So I can actually change it. I can, move points. So that's how you actually make, convert it from a text box into an actual shape, and how you can actually manipulate fonts. So a lot of people do that. They start with fonts, and then this is how you can kind of move individual shapes and maybe rotate them and stuff like that. So I wanted to show you that first, with individual shapes. Now I'm going to go back up, and I'm going to select that. I'm going to do that to this. And when I do that, now it's, now when I rotate, it won't rotate the text box. It will actually rotate the text. And now you just have to be careful. I'm going to hold down Shift when I'm doing it. Otherwise, if I don't do that, it's going to stretch. And again, we talked about how we don't want to do that. We don't want to stretch and distort text. Okay, so we've already learned a lot. Okay, now let's talk about, I'm going to make a new text box, and I'm going to put my name again. All right, what if we don't like this font? I'm going to properties. Go to properties, and so here's all these options. Okay, and it's really nice because it's actually showing you a preview of what your name would look like in these different fonts. Okay, then I'm going to go down to the very bottom where it says more fonts, and then it actually has like subgroups, and then it also has some other things underneath that. So that's really cool. This is browsing by tags. Isn't that really nice that you can actually say, oh, I know I want a school font, or I know I want a Halloween font. What are all my options for Halloween fonts? So that's really cool that you can search by tags. Okay. Then it's going to say at the very bottom, we have thousands of fonts here that are included in your subscription. Do you want to add them? Yes. So I'm going to go to Open Creative Cloud mobile app. Now, when you select that, make sure that you actually have it downloaded. Okay. So this is my Creative Cloud app. So this is actually downloaded on my computer right here. It's in my dock right here at the bottom. But again, you want to make sure that that is downloaded. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to launch it. Okay, first, you can go to Edit Sample Text in the upper right-hand corner. And I can type in my first and last name, like you can see I already did when I was practicing. Okay, so I actually changed it so I'm previewing what my name would look like with these. All right, and then also under filtered, we can pick the classification. So remember we talked about script versus mono versus slab serif versus serif versus sans serif. So you can actually, maybe you want a script font, you can select that and it's only going to show you that. Okay, then you can also search by properties. So the weight, the width, the height, maybe you want a tall font, maybe you want it to have a lot of contrast or no contrast. So it's really nice that you can check by that. So I might actually say, I don't want it to have any contrast because I know that I need to cut this out with the Cricut or something. So I'm going to pick that it doesn't have any contrast with the script. So I'm going to hit done, and then I'm going to look down, and I really like this one. This would work really well for the Cricut. So I'm going to hit the plus, and that's going to add it. This is called Fairwater Script. I have to remember that. Make sure you look at the name at the top before you go back to Illustrator. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to Illustrator, and I'm going to select the font, and I have to remember the name. And it's in alphabetical order. That also helps. And there it is, Fairwater Script, bold. Now I can select it. Maybe, is it not done? It might not be done downloading. There you go. Yeah, maybe it wasn't done downloading. Okay, and there is the text. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show you was maybe you want to, maybe you want to, let me group this and move it. It's not letting me move. You want to type on a path. So I could either take the pen tool and I can make a path, or I can use a shape. So circles are probably really commonly used for typing on paths. So I'm going to make a circle. Okay, and then what if I wanted my name to actually curve on that path? So what you would do is you would select, I'm going to select my name and the path, and then I'm going to go back to that T on the right, and I'm going to pick the second option, which is type on a path. And notice that now it's putting the type on that path. Now, it's not how I want it to be, right? I actually want it to be at the top. So I'm going to click and drag on the left here. We have these little handlebars, and this allows you to move it on the path. Okay. Now, also notice that you are going to have some options under properties where it says type on the path. So I can change it from being on the top to being in the inside curve. I can change the baseline, like where it's actually sitting. So I'm going to just leave it at that. You can also skew it, and we don't want you to do that, right? Like we just talked about how not to like actually skew fonts. And so those are the options you have after you've actually put it type on a path. So maybe I put the top of my name. Maybe I need to make another circle. And I'm going to do my last name. Okay, and then I'm going to select the circle. Oops. Oh, I got to make sure I have the selection tool, my last name, and then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to put type on a path. Okay, but this time I would say I'm going to go under here, and I want it to be on the inside. And I need to make it smaller so that it like fits nicely here. And then I can move it. There we go. So maybe I wanted my name, and I didn't make the circle big enough. I should have made it big enough. So I want the top of my name and the bottom of my name to get, and I figure out size here and everything. Okay, so we went over type on a path, how to load more fonts, properties, and then how to outline it. Okay, so I went over, I think, everything I wanted to cover with you about text. And so that's how you can add text and manipulate text for your logo.